they cannot easily be translated because it has a lot of hidden meaning with it. So they believe that these kernels of the meaning should be translated. The deeper meaning should be translated. There are two layers of meaning. One is the surface layer and the other is the deeper layer. So if we analyze a particular text, we find that at the surface layer you can easily translate, but at the deeper layer that meaning becomes more and more complicated, and in hermeneutic approach they made an attempt to translate the deeper meaning of a particular text. And in that way, they were somewhat different from earlier theoreticians who were mainly focusing on the surface meaning of the text and not on the deeper meaning of the text. They were of the opinion that language is created by God, so it has the creative power of the God and is full of meaning. With the scriptures, especially with the scriptures and the religious books, they were of the opinion that the holy books like Bible, Quran or Vedas cannot easily be translated because it is full of meaning. And if it is full of meaning and the signs are full of creative energy, then it cannot easily be translated without giving interpretation to each one of those meanings. Martin Heidegger has put it as sine efficientia. He calls it each expressions used in these texts, in these scriptures, are full of creative meaning, and a role of a translator is to elaborate, is to interpret, or is to open up the meaning, unravel the mystery of each one of those expressions. And this divine inspiration which is covered in these scriptures are unraveled in the hermeneutic approach. And in that way it is different from the literary approach. In literary approach the focus is mainly on the text itself, but in hermeneutic approach the focus is more on the hidden meaning of a particular text, and in that way it is different from the literary approach that we have discussed earlier. After analyzing these traditional theories of translation, we go to language-based theory of translation. When we come to the language-based translation, we find that there was a lot of interest in language-based theories of translation in all these years, because the focus was mainly on the language. It all started with the arrival of comparative linguistics in late 19th century. So the whole of 19th century is regarded as an era of comparative linguistics, where the two languages were compared with each other. The comparative method is a set of techniques developed over more than a century and a half that permits us to recover linguistic constructs of stages in a family of related languages. The recovered ancestral elements may be phonological, morphological, syntactic, lexical, and semantic. The linguistic model of translation makes a statement about the linguistic mechanism involved in the transfer or replacement of source language signs by target language signs. So the focus is shifting from the meaning to linguistic signs. The focus is now mainly on linguistic sign, and this is how linguistic or language-based approach is somewhat different from the traditional approach. Earlier, when we were looking at the traditional approach, we came to know that the hermeneutic approach and the literary approach were mainly focusing on the text itself, but here on the meaning. They were more interested in the meaning than on the text, than on the words used in the text. But in language-based theories, the focus is shifting and we are focusing mainly on the statements about the linguistic mechanism involved in the transfer or replacement of source language signs into target language signs. This approach treats translation as a specific, perhaps unique type of language use. It does not consider external or extra linguistic factors such as critical norms or the constraints or practices. So this extra linguistic norm is not taken into consideration in language based theory. So this point is very, very important in language based theories of translation, because we do not pay any attention to extra linguistic factors. It mainly concentrates instead on systematic relationship between the source and target languages. The model studies the linguistic resources of the source and target languages and the mechanism available in the target language for overcoming the structural differences between source and target language that appear in translation. The linguistic model investigates the transfer potential of words and constructions and tries to establish correspondence rules between languages. Now what happens is that the two languages will not be very much similar to each other. The two languages, the source language and the target language, will be somewhat different from each other. To elaborate this point further, let's have a look at the interrogative sentences in English. How do we form an interrogative sentence in English? By replacing the word order. So you simply, by replacing the word order, we get this is a pen, and if we want to make it interrogative, we make it by shifting is from its position, its original position to initial position, and we make it and the interrogative will be, is this a pen? But that rule will not be applicable on Indian languages, especially Hindi, Urdu, and we add a new word to make it interrogative, that is kya. So the point that I am trying to establish here is that there is a difference between surface structure and deep structure. At the deeper level, both the languages are same because they carry the same meaning, but at the surface level they are different because they adopt two different techniques to make interrogatives in both the languages. There is also a more general linguistic model which is often taken to represent the linguistic model proper. It is sometimes called translation linguistics or linguistic theory of translation. Catford 1965 prefers to call it linguistic theory of translation, and Jagger 1975 prefers to call it translation linguistics. So these are the two models given by Catford and Jagger. The linguistic model of translation is precisely about understanding how language can be applied by translators. The contrastive linguistics of translation is an applied linguistics in that it studies the linguistic correspondences that actually occur or can occur in translation practice. Any model of translation that claims to deal with translation is dealing with language in use. Now this term language in use is very, very important, and before we go to language in use, we will prefer to talk about the semantic model. Now linguistic theories of translation can further be divided into smaller segments, smaller forms. For example, under linguistic theory of translation, we have a semantic model, we have a pragmatic model, we have a social-linguistic model, we have a psycholinguistic model, and then we have a computational model. We can go to each one of them one by one. We will start with the semantic model. The very term semantic suggests about the word meaning relationship. So it is more concerned with linguistic meaning. It investigates how meanings are carried over from one language to another. The reconstruction of meaning is understood as a form of language recording. From this perspective, translation is primarily a research and rewriting activity. Source linguistic units are rewritten as their target language equivalents. Now this rewritten is very, very important here. What exactly do we mean by rewritten? So what a translator does, he rewrites the meaning in another language. So basically he is not changing the meaning, he is rewriting the same meaning in another structural form. So it's basically a transfer of form than meaning. If we go by form and meaning relationship, we come to the conclusion that in semantic model the focus is mainly on meaning than on form. And we try to understand how equivalents play a role in translation model, in semantic model. Just to elaborate this point further, we can cite a few examples from English and Hindi Urdu. Take a simple English word domestic. Now domestic, we can use domestic in different ways in English. For example, we have domestic animals, we have domestic flights, we have domestic problems. But when we start translating them in Hindi Urdu, what do we find? We have different words for this word. You cannot have a domestic, for example, if you are translating domestic flight, it cannot be paltu jahaz, because domestic animals can be translated into paltu, but for flight you have a totally different word or expression. Gharelu parwaz you can call it, but not rashtriya or antarrashtriya udan are the expressions that we are using in Hindi, but not paltu as we used in case of English. Then let's go to domestic problem. Now domestic problem or domestic issues, in Urdu we prefer to call dakhli umur or dakhli mamlat. In Hindi we have some other expressions for this. अगर आप इंटेंडेड मीनिंग पे जा रहे हैं, मैंने आपसे कहा कि आप बहुत अक्लमंद हैं, मान लीजिए अक्लमंद समझती हैं, यू आर वेरी इंटेलिजेंट. नाउ अब वर्ड मीनिंग अगर सेमेंटिक मॉडल में आप जाएं या ट्रांसलेट करेंगे तो इंटेलिजेंट का मतलब इंटेलिजेंट होगा, लेकिन अगर प्रैग्मेटिक मॉडल में जाएंगे तो इंटेलिजेंट का मतलब बिल्कुल उल्टा भी हो सकता है. दैट इज़ द इंटेंडेड मीनिंग. व्हाट एग्जैक्टली डू आई इंटेंड टू से, do I really mean it? तो ये जो क्वेश्चन है कि do I really mean it, that will give you the pragmatic model. So if you are focusing mainly on the intended meaning of the author, because you are trying to peep into the mind of the author, and अगर उसको ये देख रहे हैं कि author क्या कहना चाह रहा था, especially in fiction, so यही problem mainly जब आप लोगों ने वो सेमिनार किया था तो हमने ये देखा कि there is always a gap. वो ट्रांसलेटर जो है उनके माइंड को नहीं रीड कर पाई है और उसने सिर्फ लिटरल ट्रांसलेशन या सेमेंटिक मॉडल अपनाया है. तो अगर प्रैग्मेटिक मॉडल जाएंगे तो आपको मेनली यही देखना होगा कि इंटेंडेड मीनिंग क्या है. सो वी वर जस्ट साइटिंग दिस एग्जांपल टू शो दैट द मीनिंग मे बी सेम, but the expression used for that particular meaning may be different in different languages. Domestic is one word which covers a whole range of meaning in English, but that's not the case in Hindi Urdu. We have number of equivalents for that, and the translator must be fully aware of the use of that expressions in different situations. For a domestic flight, we cannot use paltu. For domestic issues, we cannot use paltu. So these are the situations that suggest that words has limited semantic range, and it may vary from language to language. In one language, the word may have a wider semantic range. दो चीज़ें हैं, एक तो है जिसको हम we cover it under errors, जो गलती है जिसको आप कहेंगे कि ये गलत है. दूसरा है experimentation with the language.